Hi, folks. It's Jim Martin. Again, thanks for visiting my channel today. Today's topic is nuclear proliferation. And, interestingly, when I was growing up, you could not get away from hearing about the potential for nuclear war, hearing about arms control, negotiations, and all these sorts of things. And then, after the fall of the Soviet Union, you just really didn't hear about it much anymore. In my sense of things, it sort of released a weight that you just didn't have to think about that anymore. I lived as a child in a town that was less than 1 mile from a major military installation, which we had been told was the target of many Soviet nuclear weapons. It was something that was always kind of in the back of your mind when tensions might rise up a bit in the global political order of the time. I really didn't think much about nuclear weapons for quite some time. I knew that there were efforts to help clean up some leftover Soviet materials, to help nuclear scientists in Russia find different jobs, things like this. That were quite successful. I don't really think about that until Russia's invasion of Ukraine and subsequent threats from Vladimir Putin about using nuclear weapons either there or against NATO or against the United States. I think it's time to kind of revisit this subject because it's an important one, especially as the United States retrenches away from globalization and away from international organizations, a process which has been going on for some time and is likely to continue regardless of who the next president is. To just kind of come back and revisit some of the history so that those of you who aren't aware of this might learn something. Obviously, the United States first developed nuclear weapons 43, 44, 45, used them in Japan, and then continued to develop nuclear weapons for 4 years, being the sole nuclear power in the world. Very soon thereafter, in 1949, the Soviet Union tested nuclear weapons, and then that kept proceeding. The United Kingdom followed in 1952, France 1960, China 1964, India in 1974, Pakistan 1998, and North Korea in 2006. We also have to note that Israel probably acquired nuclear weapons sometime in the late 60s, although they deny having them. Where was the situation at the end of the Cold War? There were, I can't remember, I think the Soviets had something like 20-some thousand deliverable nuclear weapons with a number in reserve. And we had something like 14,000, something like that. Many of those, through arms control treaties and so forth, were decommissioned after the fall of the Soviet Union, before the fall of the Soviet Union actually, too, but accelerating that afterwards. Right now, there's something about 13,000 deliverable nuclear weapons between Russia and the United States, with China perhaps having something like a few hundred, so forth and so on. Numbers go down from there. This is another aspect of this that a lot of people don't think about, is that many countries have nuclear power stations of various sorts, or nuclear research stations, for a variety of reasons. Australia, Egypt, Sweden, Canada, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Saudi Arabia have capabilities, have either nuclear power stations themselves or the capabilities. They've done a lot of nuclear research. Many of these countries could rapidly transition to having a nuclear weapons program in short order. I also should mention Iran has a program. They claim it's for peaceful purposes only. But if you kind of checked out the video I did about Iran a few weeks ago, they have very strong incentives, given the dangerous neighborhood they live in, to have nuclear weapons. Iraq had a program. Libya had a program. South Africa probably had a program. These are all countries that gave them up or they were destroyed in Iraq's case. My concern about all of this is that we have this picture, which is, what my childhood picture of nuclear war would be, is a global thermonuclear exchange, which would wipe out civilization altogether. That said, that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. We could have small-scale, limited nuclear engagements between different countries. Those could spiral out of control. There could also be difficult, right now, the United States and Russia do not communicate well, as we know. You have a very tiny group of people that surround Vladimir Putin who tell him what he wants to hear, and they have a mindset that is not amenable to compromise or gathering new information that they might not have known before. These kinds of communication problems can lead to disputes over particular things that can end up starting wars. World War I is an example of a war that started that way. And when you have nuclear weapons, that makes things a lot more dangerous. You have leadership like Xi, which has taken on this sort of ultranationalist kind of position. This is a potential danger spot also, because they are modernizing their nuclear weapons. I should also note that the United States and Russia have launched on pretty sizable modernization, and construction projects to update and grow their nuclear forces. Perhaps we will be fortunate and nothing will come of this, but the more people that have these things, the chance of somebody using them in some kind of capacity seems to grow. One thinks about a coup in Pakistan. Would India possibly have a first strike on Pakistan as a result of that? I don't know. I don't have the answers to these things. These kinds of questions should be asked, and people should be keeping their eye on this issue for sure. Thank you very much.